Today's episode of the Mind Sculptors podcast is brought to you by TCG Player, your source for all your trading card game needs. Please consider using our link in the description for your next purchase, as it helps support the continued refinement of our show. This episode is also made possible through the gracious support of our Patreon members. If you wish to join this esteemed group, simply visit patreon.com/The Mind Sculptors and become part of the SCULPTY family today. And of course, if you prefer a simpler gesture, we invite you to subscribe, leave a like and comment on YouTube, or leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as a most fitting offering to the ever-watchful algorithm Jesus.
I've been watching through all the Defenders shows, right? Mm-hmm. So Daredevil and Jessica Jones and all that, because I've been watching the new Daredevil series, which I told you about last week.
Yes,
and,
which you said is very good, correct?
It's excellent. It's so good. But I was watching it and I'm like, man, I just kind of don't remember everything that happens
beforehand, yeah.
After, really, just even I remember watching the first season of Daredevil and being like, this is really good. But then, I didn't watch any of the other stuff. And so I've been watching through it. And I remember passively watching Jessica Jones when it came out.
Yeah.
But God, I did not remember. So I'm 3 episodes into the show right now. I did not remember how much fucking sex is in this show.
Yeah, no, she'd be banging for sure. Yeah.
God damn, chill.
Yeah.
Luke Cage is hot. I'm not arguing with you. You are objectively correct. But chill.
Yeah. No, that they'd be banging pretty hard in that show for sure.
They broke a couple beds. So
true. Super people, super
problems.
Yep. That's what I was going to say.
Oh my goodness. Welcome everybody to the Mind Sculptors. I'm Cal.
And I'm Ian.
And this week we are looking at Tarkir Dragonstorm.
Woo-woo.
And we'll be looking at the commander set and the main set. And, we always write our tagline on YouTube. Our episode title is insert set name here. The set that breaks cEDH. I think this one might actually live up to that title, because
it's a little closer. It's a little closer. I remember specifically DMing you when our number one pick for the set, or my number one pick, your number 2, I think, was spoiled. I said, "Okay, Cal, the title might be right."
This might not just be a bit. This might just be correct.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at some stuff today.
Let's get into it. Honestly, there's a lot of fucking cards to talk about, and
there are a lot of cards to talk about.
We're gonna have a good amount of chatter to have for sure.
So let's get into this. Obviously, just a reminder: if you like this content, make sure to head over to patreon.com/The Mind Sculptors. Wow. And you can help us out there. We did get some new patrons in the last couple of weeks, so we greatly appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But let's get into this. So we're starting off here, as we always do, with the cards that we're looking at as potential commanders out of the set. Mm-hmm. There are some legends that are not on this list that we'll talk about later in the creature section. Those are cards that we generally don't think about as commanders, but are still legendary. Mm-hmm. So the first card we're going to be talking about here is Felithar, Dawn of the Abzan. This is a legendary human warrior that costs white, black, and green, is a 3/3, has trample, and says whenever Felithar enters or attacks, you may sacrifice a non-land permanent. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is really good. Before I even talk about this as a commander, right, I do want to point out that this is actually a really nuts Najeela card, because you sack a warrior and then you put a +1/+1 on everything, your board scales insanely quickly.
Honestly, didn't even really think about that. I will say, that brings up the topic that I would think we're going to bring up maybe 13 or 14 different times during this episode.
This has so many Najeela cards.
Yeah, one of our favorite games here on the Mind Sculptors is this
Najeela card. I liked the dissonance we had between the two of us. It really added a great element to it.
An echo, for sure. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it, to be honest, but it kind of honks in that deck. I'm not going to lie.
I think that Najeela, like, just full-blown attack Najeela might be in the best place it's ever been because of this.
Murder Najeela is legitimately getting so many upgrades in this set. It's sort of crazy.
It's like a whole new deck now.
Including a commander we're going to talk about in like literally 1 minute.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, so we're talking about Felthor as a commander, or Felthar. Sorry, this isn't a Lord of the Rings card. So as a commander, there's some obvious things that you can do with this, right? One of the nice things about this being that it's both an enters and attacks trigger. We love to see a Titan, like the Titan templating. That is always good to see. As a commander, what are your thoughts on this, Ian? As like, I mean, there's obviously, like, this kind of reminds me some degree of like, what's it called? The black, red, and green commander, or black, red, green. Why am I blinking so hard?
The
dragon.
Green?
The dragon. Why am I blinking so hard?
That sacks things and puts counters on stuff?
No, but sacks things, you draw a card.
Korvold?
Yeah, it is evocative of Korvold in that way.
Kind of, except for it doesn't say whenever you sack a non-land permanent, put a 1 on counter.
That's true. Right? It's whenever it enters or attacks. So yeah, that is a bit different. But it is in colors that generally prefer enters or attacks triggers, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, but anyway, thoughts about this as a commander? Like, what do you see people doing with this? Yeah,
well, I don't know, Cal. In the Abzan shard or wedge, I'm trying to think. What sort of creature, I don't know, maybe like 7 mana, wants to be sacrificed? Yeah, it's hard to think about Abzan and maybe like some sort of Hulk of some type, or being cheeky.
They haven't printed Hulk yet. Like we have Deadpool. We have Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
We have Storm. We don't have Hulk. What are you talking about?
Iron Man. Yeah. The Incredible Hulk for sure is lacking in Magic. However, we do have our own green Incredible Hulk, known as Protean Hulk, if you couldn't catch by me being cheeky. Once again, the fact that this is an enters or attacks actually makes it pretty solid, right? Giving you the flexibility to be able to get that activation off whenever you need to, right? You can play this commander for value early on in the game and not get punished by, basically having it on the battlefield, which is pretty sick. Not to mention the fact that, like, if you're playing sort of an Abzan Hate Bears style strategy with a little aristocrat sub theme, right? This is pretty sick as far as like generating it, like a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. If you're on any sort of go wide strategy,
it scales incredibly quickly.
It scales incredibly well, right? So like a Protean Hulk deck is always suffering from, potentially too many dead card slots, right? But here you get to go like, okay, worst case scenario, maybe you're not scared of my fucking carrion feeder, but it's a lot bigger when you're putting 1/1 counters on your mana dorks and your carrion feeders and your viscera seers and your Samwise Gamgee that you happen to draw at the wrong time, right? Like it's pretty solid as far as like, yeah.
The other thing that I think is really cool about it is, let's say you're trying to get like some sort of reanimate thing going on. You play a commander that lets you sacrifice things that would get in the way. So you can still play stacks pieces that are antithetical to what you want to be doing, but allow you to kind of play a long tempo game. And then when you need the window, you can open it up. I think that's something that this has great potential to do, especially with like Grafdigger Siege is immediately what comes to mind, right? Like it's the thing that you probably want to play in this, despite this being what is likely a Protean Hulk deck.
Yeah, no, so real. And like that's kind of what we noticed. Anyone who's had like any sort of success with Bartolome in cEDH as like a fringe deck has had that same sort of reality attached to it, which is, oh, well, it's way different when you can sacrifice a permanent and not just a creature, right? And I think there's something truly poignant there. The fact that like you can easily play Deafening Silence in a deck like this, but if for some reason you're stuck with all your non-creatures, boom, get it out of here. It's time to start slamming things onto the battlefield. You know, it's pretty sick in that way. So I think what like a key word that you're going to hear me sort of hyper fixate on for the next, honestly, we don't even know how long, is this word flexibility, right? I think that there is a lot of potential for adaptive, flexible commanders right now in cEDH. And so like this card having that flexibility, I think makes it feel maybe not as bad to not be playing blue, you know?
Honestly, yeah. Moving right along to a blue card, Narset Jeskai Waymaster. This is a 3/4 human monk that says at the beginning of your end step, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw cards equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn. And of course, just like this whole cycle, she costs blue, red, and white. This is an interesting card. I don't know that I believe in this as much as some other folks around, specifically you and Jeremy, do believe in this. But, you know, what is your take on this? There's clearly, like, it is clearly something that has, like, tremendous ceiling, right?
Yeah. I think this is a card that was aimed for us. I'm not going to lie. And for a little peek behind the curtain, from my understanding, and this is just my interpretation of things that I've heard, basically, like, there was more focus on the power level of this set, and definitely an interest in cEDH, right? For as we'll probably see from some of the designs, right? And so this card looks. And this was weird in the sense that, like, this definitely feels like it's a card designed for cEDH by someone who doesn't play cEDH.
100%.
And that's okay. Basically, Narset's just like a really weird flubs, in my opinion, where like you're in probably better colors for doing this thing.
Yeah.
And you're not trying to necessarily storm in the sense that you're trying to just dump your hand in hopes that you like rip a god hand in your end step, but more so I think the idea is that you're just supposed to play like a comical amount of win conditions in this deck, and you're supposed to just go, all right, cool, try and win the game. Shit, that didn't work. Okay, anyways, draw cards equal to all the cards I just expended trying to win the game this turn.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just do it again, right?
The one downside, and this might be an interesting thing, is you do have to discard down to hand size. So I almost wonder if this is a deck that you consider playing like what's the card called? The Reliquary Tower in, honestly, because it's one of those things where, like, you know, if you cast like 15 cards and you refill your hand, discarding 8 cards is going to be rough for no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, because specifically Narset also asks you to discard your hand too, right? So like, I feel like there's probably going to be some sort of like Surly Badgersaur style card that ends up making the final cut for this deck, or something quirky like that, right? I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. Like, maybe the awkward part is a lot of discard based stuff in decks like this tends to be pardon me. Stuff that like allows you to discard into impulse draw, right? Which is obviously very awkward in your end step. However, that being said, that could be a potential avenue for the deck, is like sticking a Flood Caller or a Born early in the turn, you know, dumping your entire hand and then going like, all right, I'll probably pop off in my end step as well, right? So I think that there is the point is, I'm not in love with this card. I don't think it's like the best design space we've ever gotten, and I feel like my description earlier is pretty apt for it, in the sense that it's like it feels like it is a cEDH aimed card that maybe misses the mark a little bit. That being said, I think a bold deck designer could make this deck work, because I think if you try to build it like a normal Jeskai Breach deck and just that, I think you're going to miss the point of this command.
You're going to have a bad time.
I agree.
Anyway, Zurgo Stormrender. This is a 3/3 orc warrior that costs a red, white, and black. It has a Mobilize 1, which is a new ability that says whenever this creature attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature token, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. And then it also has a stacked ability that says whenever a creature token you control leaves the battlefield, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, each opponent loses 1 life. Jeremy Phoenix has been working on this deck quite a bit recently. This is an interesting deck and an interesting commander. It does a very specific thing. It's pretty good at doing the thing. What are your thoughts on this, like, generally?
Yeah, so I played against the precon of this deck, and I was like, oh, this is a lot of very annoying stat lines as an opponent, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And then, first of all, we get to play our favorite minigame. Is this a new card?
Probably not.
I don't know that I disagree. I might disagree, right? It's specifically it's a warrior itself. It makes warriors. And if any of your warriors die in combat, which your opponents are very inclined to try and make happen, they're all cantripping, right? Like they are drawing.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, Warren Soul Trader has been being played a lot more in these decks, right? So the idea that this combined with Warren is just, okay, cool, go to combat, swing, make like 8 warriors, sacrifice them all to Soul Trader, lose 8 life, make 8 treasures, draw 8 cards is like, not bad.
No, that's not bad. That's not bad.
So it's definitely probably in a more combat focused Najeela deck that you would see this, and it might end up being too cute or whatever, right? But between the Chatterfang lines and the Warren Soul Trader stuff, like I think that this is probably better than it maybe looks in the 99 of Najeela. But that being said, in its own deck, when you can specifically build around these types of things, you can have infinite tokens die in your end step or whatever, and drain your opponents out for all those types of loops. I think this card is just a deck that will snowball way faster than you think it will. And with a bunch of the really cool token enablers that were printed in this specific set, I think this is way better than it looks. I also think
100%
kind of interesting that you can do like a second main phase Kiki Jiki line, right? And then move to end step or Village Bellringer with Kiki or with Balloon Man, right? You can do any of those lines and then move to end step and go, okay, cool. Well, even though I couldn't go through combat, sack all these tokens, drain the entire table with Zergo is like pretty cool.
Oh, weird. I won.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely very proactive, very Mardu, but like kind of a different take on Mardu. I feel like it could be a little stacksy, or it could just be very aggressive, right? Like a very close definition of what we could consider aggro, because this does feel like it actually puts real pressure on the table from an aggro perspective, Yeah.
Yeah, fully agree with you.
Yeah.
Next card we've got here is Codis, the Fanebreaker. This is a 2/1 zombie warrior. What?
Do you want to try that name again?
Fangkeeper.
Just like not even a close word. Like just not even slang. Otis, the cantaloupe man. Like, what happened?
How?
I don't know. Yeah. Codis, the second year pediatrician. Like, just making shit up now, I guess. I don't know.
Codis, the first baseman. So Codis, the Fangkeeper, is a 2/1 zombie warrior that costs a generic 1 black, green, and blue. It's indestructible. Jesus, why the fuck is this indestructible?
Because it's a fucking one.
Sure. Whenever Codis deals combat damage to a player, exile the top X cards of their library, where X is the amount of damage dealt. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. This card is a what we in the biz like to call a slam dunk.
Yeah, this is a fucking sick commander, honestly. This is exactly the kind of commander I hope they design for cEDH forever, because it's in good colors, right? It has a wonderful support system. Sultai is in a really solid spot right now, right? First of all, I love that this is a Sultai commander that allows you to like you can play a calling ritual and then get in with this commander, and like just like little things like that make me very happy. Build around in the sense that you can play this as an anti-creature Sultai deck and just play board wipes that, you know, things like Damnation, right? Like things that we don't traditionally get to see play in cEDH, which is already like A+ in my book, that it's encouraging that type of play pattern. And also in the current meta, creature hate is fucking fantastic, right? And it encourages separate play patterns, right? It encourages you to play pump spells in your Sultai deck, right? It encourages you to find cards that allow you to play that Sultai good stuff game plan while also potentially adding atypical play patterns that you might not be used to, right? Like I love this as a GT deck, right? Like it just going to, like in worst case scenario, you go swing in an opponent, they block with GT, and you're like, cool, 2 counters. Either I have removal spells for the turn cycle, or next turn you're going to really wish that you didn't block with this commander. You know, like it's really, really cool. And I think this design is very clever. I'm like genuinely a giant fan of this card because it's in good colors already. So you don't need to worry about the deck just on a basement level being viable, right? There's so many good options in Sultai. And now we have this ability to also just have a super interesting design space that is like gonna make this deck very unique. Yeah, you need the commander. It's very commander dependent, but the backup plan for the deck is like, all right, cool, just play good Sultai shit. Like move on with our life. You know, it's great.
Darn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, this is pretty hot. I think like you could make a pretty good argument that this is like a solid deck to play, like, you know, like swords in, like sort of Feast and Famine, sort of Fire and Ice, like those types of effects, like do really well and with this type of effect. So I think like there's a lot of advantage with this. I do think that one thing to keep in mind is that the ability like definitely scales.
Yeah.
But does end up being just an exile 2 most of the time. And that's fine. Right. Like that's fine. But like that is a notable thing to keep in mind with that. Next on our list here is Shiko and Narset Unified. This is a 4/4 human spirit dragon that costs a generic blue, red, and white. It has flying and vigilance, and it says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent or player, and you may choose new targets for the copy. If you don't copy a spell this way, draw a card. So this is like obviously does some stuff. I don't like this personally.
Okay. That's fair.
Like, I don't think it's bad for what it's worth.
Fair.
I just think in these colors, like we've already talked about one commander that I think is like infinitely more interesting in these colors than this. Personally,
you think 3 mana in our set's more?
The 3 mana in our set is like a card I'm more interested in playing than this one. Like I don't think this is bad.
I think I would actually genuinely rather play this commander, right? Because like this screams to me like this feels like the exact sort of dynamic that we were just talking about like what will see play versus what could see play type of mentality, right? Like I feel like people are going to make a lot of bad Jeskai Waymaster Narset lists, right? Whereas like
100%.
I feel like if someone takes the time to do Shiko and Narset right, it's probably going to perform better, right? I think the idea of like, first of all, there's a bunch of extra turn spells that say target player takes an extra turn, right? Sure. Obviously, you open yourself up to shit like Deflecting Swat, like such as life, right? That's cEDH, you know?
It still does copy it regardless, though, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, that is still a positive.
And then we have to think about like common staple of the format, Jessica's Will, right? Like that is a spell that targets, right? So there's a lot of really good stuff that does target. It's Savine's Reclamation, right? Like, and I'm not naming like crazy out there cards, right? Like these are cards that you can expect are pretty damn good in these colors, and triggering a second spell per turn in Jeskai, which is known for its like mana efficiency, not that hard to do, right? So that's why I really like this spell. And then worst case scenario, it has some bad card advantage on turns where you're like cromming, basically.
Yeah.
Which I don't hate either, right? And also during counterspell fights, your second counterspell is really damn good too.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about it where I'm just like, this is my commander does not spark joy.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Being like once per turn, your second spell. And I'm just kind of like, that doesn't feel.
No, I agree. It's very much, it's not like the kind of broken commanders that we're used to for like pushing in format, but I think this is exactly like a fruits and vegetables commander. Like I think it is objectively a deck.
I'll accept that.
cEDH, you know what I mean?
Listen, all you got to tell me is eat my fruits and vegetables. I'm like, all right, fine, Dad.
Here's my other one pitch. 2 intuitions. Pretty fucking cool.
That is pretty fucking cool. Counterpoint. Intuition piles are mildly overrated, but
yes, but imagine 2 of them.
Then they're just super overrated. Now they're just double overrated.
Base take. Can't even.
Next card on our list here is Tival, the Balanced Scale. This is a 4/4 legendary spirit dragon that costs a generic, a black, a green, and a blue. It has flying, and it says whenever Tival attacks, mill 3 cards. Then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black zombie creature, a black zombie druid creature token. So this card fucks.
Yeah.
I mean, it is immediately something that you look at this, right? And it's just like a good soul tie deck automatically. Like it feels like it does some of the same stuff that like, I think it does what cEDH was doing, but I feel like it does it a little bit better.
Is it? It's not as good as enabling like weird win conditions as cEDH, right? Unless I'm crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't like create bodies when they get there. So like cEDH, when it enters or attacks, you mill 3 cards. And then the second is whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, create a 2/2 black zombie. Yeah. So this cEDH enables stuff in a different way.
Gotcha.
But like I look at it and I go, if I was sitting here and trying to decide between building like cEDH or Tival, I feel like Tival makes
more sense. Yeah.
Just better. Right?
Yeah. Like, I hear you. I think also like what's interesting is Gravecrawler plus this commander with like a Phyrexian Altar becomes really cute, right? You basically get to make infinite mana if you have a single zombie druid token.
Right.
Kind of fun because you're making an extra body every time you iterate through the loop. It kind of works with Warren Soul Trader, but obviously you have to pay life every time, which makes that a lot more tenuous. And requires you have an outlet. And then, so yeah, you can also just do generic Sultai stuff, which is like fine.
I think generally this might be like a good secret, like Gitrog deck. You know, something I've really liked in cEDH is playing like Gitrog in the 99.
You talked about this list in like a year and a half, but I do remember your very deep dive on Secret Commander Gitrog with blue. And I think like this is one of those commanders that is going to be very like, it's going to feel like Sultai Tatyova a little bit, right? Maybe like I think this has to really fight with Glarb for what the best Sultai lands deck.
I fully agree. Yeah,
would be. But I still think,
I mean, and for what it's worth, Glarb is the strictly better card.
Yeah,
like, fully. Okay. But this is a card that I look at and I'm like, yeah, this is, and I think it's also very like telling that I look at this card versus like Shiko and Narset, and I'm like, this is an interesting thing versus the other one where I'm like, yeah, it kind of feels like Crom, right? Like,
sure.
Like this is something that I feel like is more unique, more interesting, and I'd like. Even if I don't think this card is like insanely good, when I say this fucks, I'm like, this card is unique. It's interesting.
Define fucks.
It's powerful. Like,
yeah,
maybe it's not the best card, but it gets pussy.
There's no way you're leaving that in. There's no way in hell.
Bet. What sponsor am I losing?
I don't know, dog. You know, maybe a certain West Coast company would probably want to watch our set review, but that's fine. Anyways, next card. I don't read cards ever. I'm gonna do it now. Pator, Ancestor's Voice for 2 and Abzan is a flying lifelink Dargon Spirit, and the beginning of your end step, put a number of 1/1 counters on up to 1 other target creature you control equal to the amount of life you gained this turn. Return up to 1 target creature with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you lost this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield. Aw, Cal, but how in black am I going to be able to lose a bunch of life?
Can I just say that, like, I have played with Chains of Mephistopheles.
Preach the good
and
word.
I'm pretty sure that this has more text than that card. Every time, like, this is my ADHD brain, right? Every time I read this card, I like drift off.
Yeah, it's like the Charlie Brown Parents thing where they're just like, wah, 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 wah.
I'll get like 3 or 4 lines into it, and then my brain just kind of goes somewhere else. And so I gotta be honest with you. You've read it. I've read it. I don't totally understand this card.
Sick. Powerful. Okay, here, I'm going to summarize it like this. You start your turn. You draw 3 cards off Sylvan Library. You take 8 damage. Oh no, play your commander, move to the end step, reanimate the Razaketh in my graveyard. Anyways, have a good day, everybody. Or the
I like that pitch. I like that pitch. Got to be honest.
There's a pretty good pitch, you know, like I'm not going to lie. Like there's a lot of, also funny enough, the card Reanimate also instigates a second Reanimate from this commander, which I think is very funny. Are you processing that one? Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. I reanimate a big creature.
I feel like Abzan got great ads this set.
I think this is great. No, for sure. Abzan has been sort of just like faffing about for the past like year and a half. So I do love that.
Year and a half. As long as I've been playing cEDH, Abzan has been like the redheaded stepchild.
Yeah.
Of, like this format.
Probably fair. Probably fair.
As long as I have been playing this format, it has always been a fringe color pairing. And I agree. I don't know that this makes it not that.
Yeah.
But it certainly makes it more interesting, right? Like,
yeah.
At least you have like a reason to play these things now versus it was just like, well, I hope you like what's the commander everybody's been playing? The Abzan one that my brain forgets. Okay. I've had really bad memory issues today.
Timnathwana or something else?
No. The one that everybody was complaining about going to time. Tayam. Everybody's like, oh, Tayam.
Yeah.
Now you can be like, oh, Bador.
Yeah, Tayam has been the sort of Atlas holding up the world of Abzan for sure. So it's nice to give it a little bit of a break.
A little oomph.
Yeah, a little oomph. That was a very wet oomph.
Oomph. I did kind of spit when I said that. Yeah. The other thing that I think is very interesting to note with this does have a very like positive interaction with stuff like Necropotence. So like I think this deck isn't just Sylvan Library Reanimate. I think there's a lot of ways you can take this.
Yes.
That are very, 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 very good.
Agreed.
And so like, I mean, Entomb, and then you necro a bunch and you return whatever. Yep. Like that itself is very strong.
I think it's a very powerful play pattern. Yeah, agreed.
Like this is a thing. And I think like immediately like people won't think about Necropotence because I think in the past like a year or so, really, I mean, honestly, as long as I can remember, right, is Necropotence has always been you necro for like 80 and go for it, baby.
Yeah.
I think this is more you necro for what you need. You refill your hand, you return whatever the thing is you want out of your graveyard, and you keep playing like that as a stacks play pattern of the Necropotence isn't there to combo off. The Necropotence is there to keep my hand full and bring back pieces so that you can't get rid of my stuff. Right. Yep. Like I think that is incredibly strong.
Yeah, I think this commander is really interesting. I think that's like these play patterns are going to be kind of fascinating. And for 5 mana, it's a pretty efficient body, right? Like it's obviously it's an investment, right? You put energy and mana into it, but this card could be.
You don't put energy into it. You just put mana into it.
You're an idiot.
That was last set, Ian. Come on.
Anyway,
keep up with it. Next card that we're going to be talking about here is Shiko Paragon. Every time I say Shiko, I think of Shigo from Kim Possible. So it's like every time I say it, that pops into my head.
Yeah.
Shiko Paragon of the Way. It's a 4/5 spirit dragon that costs 2 generic, a blue, a red, and a white. Has flying vigilance and says whenever Shiko enters, exile target non-land card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. Copy it, then you may cast the copy without paying its mana value. Yeah, I guess you can do kitten stuff with this.
Yeah, I think this is.
I don't think that's very exciting, got to be honest.
But. Yeah, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit pre-show, where it's like people have been talking about Shiko, and I think there's some cute shit you can do with Shiko, and I think Flicker is definitely like if you're going to do anything that is broken in Shiko, it's going to be with flickering this commander. But that being said, I think
it has such a hard ceiling is my issue with it.
I completely agree. Yeah. To me, I look at this and I compare it to 4 mana Narset from the, was it the Afterlife set or Aftermath? Yeah.
Afterlife.
Ooh, y'all ghosts. I'm ghost Narset. No, but I think you look at 4 mana Narset and it's probably just wins apples to apples with this commander. But as I said, if you're going to find any interesting shit with this commander, it's going to be through those spaces of like, oh, I ghostly flicker Shiko and another card, and then when that resolves, I pick up the ghostly flicker. Ooh, ghosts.
But I think my issue with it, right, is. Like my issue with like Shiko and Narset, right? The card, not the 2 cards, the singular card. The issue I have with that card is I feel like its floor is in like the fucking basement. And
Shiko and Narset or Shiko?
Shiko and Narset. Like I feel like that card has a floor that is like maybe not the basement. Maybe it's just like on the first floor. Like it cantrips. Okay, cool.
Sure.
Like second spell, like I feel like that its top end is like wild, right? Like I feel like that's my issue with it mostly is like its floor is really low compared to some other things with a really high ceiling. And I feel like that variance I don't love. This, on the other hand, I feel like its floor is like relatively high, right? Because your mana value, not necessarily like talking like 10th floor, you know, it's like on the 3rd or 4th floor of the building. Like it's reasonably up there, but because of the fact that you're able to copy stuff and then immediately play it, I think that's like reasonable, right? Like you are kind of getting to it a little bit faster. That being said, and you also have that like repeatability of it. That being said, it runs out of gas really quickly, right? Like, your ceiling is like immediately the floor above. Like you have a very slim section of power you have access to. I feel like my analogy is falling apart. A
little bit,
but that's like kind of how I envision it. It's just, I feel like it has a higher floor than like maybe a Shiko and Narset, but like a lower ceiling.
Yeah.
And I think that lower ceiling really holds it back.
If you like dry toast and missionary style, then you're going to love Shiko. What? We already lost our sponsors for the episode.
What sponsors? We didn't have sponsors to begin with.
Anyway,
our lovely patrons aren't leaving over me saying pussy. Like,
and they're also not going to leave over my criticism of missionary style and unbuttered toast. I don't know.
That's fine. Hey, there's nothing wrong with missionary. Okay,
there it is. All right. Anyways,
make eye contact with people. That is okay. What's the problem? What's so wrong with looking your partner in the eyes?
What's wrong with love?
hate love, Ian.
Yeah, that's it.
Next card on Jesus Christ, this fucking cursed. Next card on our list here is Taval, Arbiter of Virtue. This is a 6/6 Spirit Dragon that costs 2 generic, a black, a green, and a blue. This has flying and lifelink and says spells you cast have delve. And whenever you cast a spell, you lose life equal to its mana cost.
A 6 mana lifelinker for 5 with flying based.
Yeah. And then also it's just like, hey, all your shit has delve. Have fun.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I think this card is probably fine.
That's how I feel about it too.
It's probably
okay. Fine.
Yeah. There's gonna be a build that you're gonna see at some point that does something and you're gonna be like, whoa, that was crazy. Anyways.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Dude, you cast a 1 mana Cyclonic Rift?
Mm-hmm.
That's hot.
Yeah. Yep. That's
sweet.
I'm glad we're on the same page with this, Commander. I think this is one of the few decks, I will say, that I approve of passive life gain. That's not normally something I'm a huge fan of, but I think in a deck like this where, this is actually my biggest criticism of the card potentially is that you need a self-mill plan. I don't think you need a life gain plan, but if you sit down with this at the table, much like sitting down with Keurig, your opponents are rightfully going to try and push your shit into your butt. And so that's not super great. That being said, this plus Enter the Infinite is obviously fucking crazy.
It is.
And the idea being that you can go, cool, like play this commander, play Enter the Infinite, immediately sacrifice it to some sort of Culling the Weak style effect, right? So then you don't have to die from burning yourself to death is probably like the best play patterns with it, right? You basically need a deck that just like has a bunch of I win the game immediately.
Like those big spell, pick up my deck.
And like, I don't think you can afford like a PETA or like an Adnaz, right? Like this has to be like, the game is fucking over.
Actually, I don't think PETA's bad here, believe it or not. Like, I think that's probably fine.
PETA maybe. My concern is like
Adnaz, absolutely not. There's no world where Adnaz and this card go together.
You just you risk the place of going like, oh, here, let me play like PETA and then not having enough life to follow up, right? Is my concern, right?
Yeah, potentially.
But I think there's a lot of 1-drops that allow you to sack a creature, right? And that makes me feel a little bit.
That's why I think it's probably fine. But
including the card Sacrifice.
Yeah.
I also think
here's the thing though. I like my shit to come out of me personally. So I don't want to get it.
You've been waiting as soon as I said
I've been waiting for you to stop talking. I've been wanting to make this joke for like 5 minutes. But yeah, I like genuinely like I don't want to be I don't like sitting down at a table. Like this is why I don't like the Adnaz decks, right? Is because I know if I sit down at an Adnaz deck, I'm immediately going to get attacked by every player at this table. Similarly, part of why I don't like Crick is I know the minute I sit down and reveal my commander, I'm immediately taking every attack from this table.
Yep.
That is not the type of game plan I like to be on.
Yeah.
And I think this is a cool card.
Yeah.
It's like, it is honestly, you made that comparison with Crick, and I think I can't agree with that comparison anymore. I think they are effectively the same card.
I meant specifically the comparison of, oh, hey, that like immediately beat me up. Like,
yeah, well, I mean that they're also cost reducers though, too. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so like, I look at that and I'm just like, I think I feel about the same way about this as I feel about Crick. Honestly, I like this more than Crick.
Not being mono black is pretty good though.
That is pretty good. Having Soul Tie makes me like it more than Crick. But it is still in that, like, I don't like Crick.
Yeah. What I will say is Delve 4 for an Aetherflux Reservoir, kind of hot. Just throwing that out there. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
You may have sold me a little bit.
Hell yeah.
Next card on the list here is I feel like I'm saying this wrong every time I say it, but Ureni?
I think Ureni, yeah.
Ureni. This is a 7/7 spirit dragon that costs 4 generic, a green, blue, and red. And it has flying and trample and says, whenever Ureni enters or attacks, look at the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a dragon creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This card's cool. I love this card. It's like Atraxa, but for dragons. It's so sweet. I like this so much.
Yeah. You might like the way I'm going to build this deck is probably very similar to the way I'm going to build loot if I build this. And what I like about this commander is that it is sort of that traditional Teamer infinite mana outlet, right? Like there's a lot of dragons that if you just have infinite flickers or infinite recasts, just play the game. Like Terror of the Peaks is the first one in mind, right? And what's cool about this deck is that the grind plan is great.
Really good.
Yeah. And the fact that you get to look at the top 8 cards makes it way less likely to have a bad whiff, right? It's not impossible, but it's significantly less likely, right? And so dropping in like 6 mana Nivs and stuff like that, or you know, like old Gnawbones and like ancient silver or copper dragons, right? Like those all as like big mana payoffs seem really dang good when your commander is already a 7/7 and it does this when it enters and when it attacks, right? So yeah, as I said, like it's a Teamer. It's like a pretty classic Teamer mid-range list, except for your stall out plan is insane.
Pretty good.
Yeah. like if you're worried about Rhystic Studies, turns out beating the shit out of somebody with a dragon is not a bad way to break through everybody holding up a Born Upon the Wind.
God, I didn't even think about the fact that you can just slam a Niv Mizzet Perun off of this thing.
Yeah, or like a Doot or a Hellkite, right? Like I think you have to play a payoff like that just because it's actually ridiculous, you know? Like
yeah, I think you play all of them, right? Like I think you just go hard. Like why not?
Yeah. So obviously 7 mana for the commander, very expensive. But you're playing Teamer, so ramp, slam.
Hey, it's what the colors do. Like it does everything these colors want to do. If you design this for cEDH, WotC, excellent. Good job. This is great design. Love this. Let's get out of the commanders. Let's move over to our non-commander creatures. Our first card here that we're going to be talking about is a Stadium Headliner. This is a 1/1 Goblin Warrior that costs 1 red. And it has Mobilize 1, just like Zurgo does. Whenever this creature attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature token. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. And then it has an activated ability that costs a generic and a red. And you sacrifice this creature. It deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature. It's not bad. What are your thoughts on this? Where do you think it goes? Obviously, like this goes in that like Zurgo deck we were talking about earlier. Very strong there. What are your thoughts on this? Kind of generally speaking, outside of that.
Yeah. So, is this Najeela card? I think so. Actually, fun fact: this is 2 warriors at 1 mana, which is very, very powerful. To be honest, the fact that this is a removal spell stapled onto 2 efficient bodies. I'm pretty sure aggro Najeela is like slam dunking this. I've heard from several Najeela pilots already that this is like a really big tech piece for them.
I believe it
is considerable in Winota, just as another piece of target removal against Dranniths and things like that would be shutting you out of your game plan. I think this is great in Jetmir specifically. It's another great place where you want the stuff for your commanders. I've heard of people even thinking about this in some Tymna decks for lower colors, just because it's 2 Tymna bodies. As I said,
maybe in like Blood Pod, maybe. I think that makes sense in like a Tymna Tana.
Yeah. But also it's worth mentioning too, right, that like every one of these Mobilize Warriors, and I feel like this hasn't really been talked about as much. So like one of the biggest problems for black decks right now is this sort of juxtaposition between how to play creatures but how not to gum up your turbo decks, right? And cards like this that are like repeatable value and that gives you a warrior you can sack on main phase 2 to Culling the Weak is like so not insignificant. And like Diabolic Intent, and it's a token for Beseech the Mirror, right? Like it's actually relevant for all of those text lines, right? And so the more we talk about mobilized cards, the more that stuff really comes into the conversation, right? So, there are definitely combat decks in the format that I think pick this guy up, no hesitation. And then I think, as I said, there's some other decks that have a little bit of extra juice with it that can't be really overlooked,
Yeah, absolutely. God, Najila's getting a lot of new cards.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Next card here. Speak of the devil. Enoch Strike Leader is a 2/2 dog warrior that costs a generic and a white. Says whenever you attack with this creature and or your commander, for each opponent, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking that player. Sacrifice this creature. Creature tokens you control gain indestructible until under. God, that line is really good. Yeah. Is this a Najila card?
I don't know. Seems good though.
2 mana is pretty aggressively costed.
Yeah. I think this is, we're going to look at it for Jetmir. We're going to look at it for Winota. We're going to look at it for certain Tymna decks. We're going to look at it for Najila decks, right? Like basically everything we just talked about for the headliner, probably looking at here.
Right.
This is an officially statted warrior, gives you pressure to put on all of your opponents. It's kind of hard to dislike this card, if I'm being frank. And the fact that there's also that extra line of text to like protect all of your against your tokens and against something like, for example, a culling ritual, which is like something that Najila deals with quite a lot, either from or for. So definitely all relevant lines of text on this card for sure.
Not bad. Yeah. Next card. This is up there for possibly best card in the set.
I'm going to say confidently, yeah.
This is Voice of Victory. This is a 1/3 human bard that costs a generic and a white, and the set has Mobilize too. So when this attacks, you create 2 tapped in attacking warriors instead of just 1. And it says your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. Neat. This may be the best silence creature for Tymna decks by like a mile.
Yeah. By the time you're watching this video, I will have already made a top 10 breakdown where I talk pretty in depth about this card in particular. TLDR, I'm really sad that it was printed, to be honest. I think Tymna has been a tier 0 deck for the entire time
since it's been printed,
right? And so a deck like that getting a very easily turn 1-able Grand Abolisher effect that if your opponents don't play blockers in the first turn cycle can mean you can turn 2, play Tymna, draw 3 cards from combat.
Yeah.
It's pretty stupid. Plus it punishes them, or it rewards them, for playing into things like Diabolic and Culling the Weak, like we already talked about with the headliner.
Right.
To be frank, I'm kind of bummed that this card exists, is the TLDR. I think this didn't need to get printed. I don't think we needed a pushed Grand Abolisher style effect. And I definitely don't think we needed one that made Tymna plans better. It's not like the sky is falling, the format's dead type of thing. It's just more like this was a
bummer.
A bummer. It's just a bummer. It's just a fucking bummer. The one upside of this card is it triggers Plagon. Like that's the only optimistic piece that I found about this entire thing is that it's a Plagon card. But I think Voice of Victory. And for those who are like, oh well, you've already had Grand Abolisher. I cannot stress enough. First of all, how relevant the body lines are, but also the fact that this only costs 1 white pip. As someone who hyper-analyzes this format every single day, multiple times a day with people,
the difference between a generic and a white and 2 white is huge.
It is so astronomically different. It is ridiculous, generically and overwhelmingly ridiculous. And I think it's very powerful for that casting cost for that thing. The fact that it also in the Bowmasters format has a 1/3 body, just why? So yeah, that it is what it is. The card exists. It's extremely powerful. literally go out and buy every copy you can. It's very good. It's going to be a cEDH staple forever.
Yep.
Fun.
Automatically staple the format.
Yeah.
Every white deck will be playing this.
Yeah.
Next card on our list here is Anafenza, Unyielding Lineage. This is a 2/2 Spirit Soldier that costs 2 generic and a white, has flash, first strike, and whenever another non-token creature you control dies, Anafenza endures 2. So when a creature endures, this is a new ability. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, or create a 2/2 white spirit creature token. So that is what that card does. What are your thoughts on this card?
Yeah, so I put this one in here. It says whenever another non-token creature you control dies, right? So I think what's nice about this card is that it is a flash non-human attacker, right? So for Winota deck, I really, really like this card. A 2/2 first strike body doesn't suck for sure. And then basically, if your opponents block any of your creatures, you get a 2/2, and then like, you know, profitable trades in your favor, all that kind of stuff. Like just sort of all end with you going, all right, cool. Like I got a 2/2 out of it. I don't think you really ever pump Anafenza. I think it's mostly for the make a bunch of 2/2s when you die mentality with it. So that's mostly the idea of its presence, right? In decks like, you know, Winota, Jetmir, etc. You know, you may play it in some more aristocrat-y or like turbo-y style thing just because of the fact that you get to like sack a thing, make another body to be able to sack, right? So it'd have to be like very actively in the sacrifice plan, but it does that, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Hot. Next card on our list is maybe the best stacks piece ever printed.
Yep.
This is Clarion Conqueror. This is a 3/3 dragon that costs 2 generic and a white, has flying, and says activated abilities of artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers can't be activated.
This card's crazy.
This card literally was just like, hey, so like whoever at R&D, like somebody at R&D plays stacks and got really fucking sick and tired of artifacts and like it being one or the other. And they just said, fuck it. Can't use anything. All your stuff. Fuck you. No artifacts, no creatures. Oh, and you think you could get around it with planeswalkers? How about this? No, you can't. I mean, it's only 1 mana more than like a collector oof.
Yeah.
And it hits 2 more things. Yeah. And
this is
has flying.
Yeah.
And is a 3/3. Why the fuck is this a 3/3?
Yeah. Like, this is one of the first cards we've seen printed in a really long time that directly encourages you to go and win conless stacks, right? Like, legitimately goes, hey, I see that you really like putting people into a grave. Would you consider doing that with me? And I like that. I like that a lot. I think it's a genuinely good, valid stacks piece that says no restrictions. Let's just end it. You know, let's just make them have it. Which I like a lot. I like more redundancy on stacks decks. I think, you know, the more redundancy and powerful effects that they create with like this, the more the archetype becomes a little bit easier to not hunt away, you know?
I'll clarify because people might hear me react the way that I did.
Yeah.
And think, well, man, Cal must really hate stacks. No, I fucking love stacks. That's what I cut my teeth on in this format. You fucking kidding me? I love stacks. If you had given me this when I was playing Lavinia as my main deck, I would have come in my pants so hard. But like, this is we've made like 90 sex jokes this episode, and I'm just committing to the bit at this point. But like, this is so aggressive in like what you get for a stacks piece, right? Like, I think of like Archon of Emeria, right? Like, we thought Archon of Emeria was pushed,
which it is.
It is. This is more pushed.
Yeah.
Like this is
and what I'm saying is good. We want more of this.
Yes,
this is a good
100%
to exist. Like period. Right. And like the literally the worst downside of this card is that it's so good that it's hard to play in places. It's like Hushbringer, right? Like
this is one of the things that people will hear. Like, and this is one thing that if anybody from WotC is listening to this, first of all, I swear to God, we can tone the sex jokes down. But at the moment, nobody's sponsoring us, so whatever.
So come.
Sex sells, baby. But like the other thing is too, like you are going to hear from casual players constantly. We don't like stacks pieces. Stacks pieces are bad. Stacks pieces are good for the health of formats. Mm-hmm. Full stop. People will say, I don't like Trinisphere. Trinisphere is the type of thing that keeps people honest. Clarion Conqueror is the type of thing that keeps people honest. Mm-hmm. These are the type of cards that mean that when there's a lot of these things floating around, I mean, hell, Drannith Magistrate's the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the type of cards that keep people honest. Yep. They're the type of cards that mean that people won't just go out and just build like a zillion Golos decks, right? Because like, oh, there's answers to these cards that make it hard. Oh, well, you know, they're probably playing like a Clarion Conquer or whatever, or like this sort of thing, right? So maybe I shouldn't play this. I'll go a different route. When you have these sorts of things, they are good, especially when you're insisting on printing like generic value engines in the command zone. So like, please give us more of this. These are good things. I don't care how much Ryan complains. Ryan from Playing with Power complains about Drannith Magistrate. Ryan, you're wrong. It's good for the format. This is good for the format. Anyway, I'm on one today, baby.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm over here yawning, and then I'll like get the yawn out of my system, and then I'm like, okay, anyway.
Hold my beer.
Dragonologist. This is our next card. It's a 1/3 human wizard that costs 2 generic and a blue. It says when this creature enters, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant, sorcery, or dragon card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Oh, also untapped dragons you control have hexproof. Mm-hmm. This probably goes in Tiamat. Like,
probably not that deck particular, but yeah, I think, basically I think the TLDR with this card is like the dig is not bad. I hate that it's 3 mana, to be honest, but it gets you pretty deep for 3 mana.
If it's this or Spellseeker, I'm probably picking Spellseeker, right? Like that's kind of my issue with it.
Exactly. That's my concern with this card too. But if it's static ability, for some clarification, we had talked about like maybe even cutting this card from the set review. But the untapped dragons you control have hexproof is relevant enough for decks that are full of untapped dragons. So that if your commander is a dragon and it's going to be untapped, play this. Also, fun fact, this is also insane in Orvar, which I think is really funny.
Oh God. Yeah. It is.
Not only is this an untapped dragon, but then you also get to target it with your blue spells, make a copy, look 6 cards deep for another card.
Okay, that's actually the reason to play this card is Orvar. Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah. Your Orvar is hexproof, and also you can copy this over and over again to dig really hard.
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like over the last maybe 4 or 5 sets, Orvar has gotten a huge facelift. Yeah, like it used to be that like Magda was that deck, right? Where it would be like every set, like, oh, here's the Magda piece. Oh, here's the Magda, or the Karkin Takashima that way too.
Yeah.
I feel like Orvar, I have seen new card after new card after new card after new card get printed where I'm like, shit, Orvar might be good.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
Next card on our list here is Flamehold Grappler. This is a 3/3 human monk that costs a Jeskai, has first strike, and says when this creature enters, copy the next spell you cast this turn when you cast it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Copy spells are good.
Pretty good. What's cool about this card is that this does not have to be cast for this ability to be in check, right? So it's whenever this creature enters, copy the next spell you cast this turn when you cast it. You may choose new target. So, for example, you play this, you play a Demonic Tutor. You get 2 Demonic Tutors. Pretty cool. The reason this card is kind of interesting is because with flicker effects, you...
What? Are you laughing at me scratching?
Yeah, I was using a back scratcher to scratch your arm for sure. That is...
It feels really good.
No, I can imagine. It was just not what I was expecting.
I'm a little itchy, okay? And this is better than my nails. Sue me.
Anyways, you can flicker this card and do some broken shit, which is cool. Yeah. And it copies the next spell kind of no matter what. So like Ephemerate plus this card is absolutely crazy. And like that's really cool stuff. Also worth mentioning, it says copy the next spell you cast this turn.
Not instant sorcery.
Not sorcery. It's a spell, right? Okay, cool. 2 dock sets. No. But yeah, so
thank God.
Yeah, right. Any spell you put on the stack after this thing, you get a copy of it. Worst case scenario, you put a spell that you don't want countered. You just say, hey, here's 2 of them. Good luck.
Which one are you countering?
Yeah, exactly. Also worth noting, you can flicker this during counterspell fights to get double counterspells to protect yourself from... yeah. Anyways, this is a cool card.
This might have been, I got this for Christmas this past year. It was like in my stocking. It was like a stocking stuffer. And like, I got a PlayStation 5 for Christmas this year. Unironically, I think I've used this more than the PlayStation 5.
I think that's what being an adult means.
I've adored this, like maybe $5 gift my mother-in-law got me. And it was just like my favorite thing I've ever gotten in my life. I keep it. You keep Cassidy's that she got next to the couch. So when I'm sitting at the couch, I got one, and I've got this one. I sit it right here next to my desk so I can sit here and scratch my beard and my back and my extremities. Yeah.
Anyways, our next card is Redoubled Stormsinger for 2 red. It is an Orc Wizard 3/3 with first strike. It says whenever this creature attacks, for each creature token you control that entered this turn, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of that token. At the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice those tokens.
This is a Rionia card.
Yeah. So Rionia got pretty beefed by the bans, right? Like being hip, Cradle, or not Cradle. Crypt, Blue Lotus, and Dockside were all cards that deck played. Oh no. But
it needed.
Yeah, some would argue. And so Rionia's definitely always been a fringe deck, but it keeps getting like some really cool pieces. And the fact that, Redoubled Stormsinger works with any token style deck to create some crazy shit, right? But like as soon as you start making copies of Redoubled Stormsinger, it gets very ridiculous, right? So basically, for example, looking at like, okay, I've cast 3 instant or sorceries, go to combat, make 4 Redoubled Stormsingers that each see 3 Redoubled Stormsingers have entered this turn, right? The math is the math be mathin' in a pretty good way, and they're all 3/3 first strikers, by the way. So, yep, murder.
Have fun.
Yeah, exactly. Cool shit.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Next card here is Songcrafter Mage. This is a 3/2 human bard that costs a teamer, has flash, and says when this creature enters, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains Harmonize until end of turn. If you're unfamiliar, Harmonize is a new effect that says you may cast that card from your graveyard for its Harmonize cost. You may tap a creature you control to reduce that cost by X, where X is its power, then exile the spell. So it's kind of like Flashback, but also has like what is it like? What does Court of Culling have?
Convoke.
So it's like kind of Convoke, kind of Flashback.
Yeah,
like a couple of those things put together. Yeah. Like so I look at this right, and I see Snapcaster Mage, but maybe a little bit worse.
Yeah. And
see Snapcaster Mage, but maybe a little bit better.
Correct. I think the fact that it gives it Harmonize specifically is actually good, right? So let's ignore most things outside of this vacuum, right? Say you have a 4-drop spell in your graveyard that is like X in a red or X in a blue or X in a green, right? You cast Songcrafter Mage, you tap Songcrafter Mage to cast that spell, and it costs you a single mana.
Fair.
That's why I think this is better than Snapcaster Mage, because as soon as you start adding mana value or to the spells you're trying to cast back, it's immediately better because it reduces those things. So as long as they have generic mana, it's better than Snapcaster Mage. Period. Okay. When it comes to 1-drops, yeah, Snapcaster is great. play Snapcaster Mage, right? But as soon as you start casting 2 or 3 drops, or 3 or 4 drops that have generic mana, this is actually really good at doing that thing, right? So like if you're playing a bunch of wheels in your deck, suddenly this becomes like 4 mana, cast a wheel from your graveyard, which is pretty sick. Past in Flames only costs a single mana, right? Like a lot of stuff like that that's in like these Teamer Stormy style cards, right? All those types of effects really pay off from playing a card like this. So you obviously want to be on like some instant or sorcery based Storm style deck, right? But it's really good at doing that, right? And that's what I like about it quite a lot.
Okay, fair. Next card is Teamer Battle Crier. This is a 4/3 Orc Ranger that costs Teamer and says during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So notably, it will at least reduce spells by 1, at least, which is good.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't really like this card.
Yeah, I think you and I kind of like looked at this and went, because this was not, I think, either of our ads. This was,
I think Jeremy added this to our list.
And I know.
Shout out to the hidden Mind Sculptor, the secret third member of our podcast.
Hidden Mind Sculptor, Crouching Jeremy, right? Anyways, it scales very well, right? If you're playing a deck that has a bunch of shit of a higher mana value, right? And it's also worth noting that it says it spells, right? Yeah. So you can play large creatures off of this and they start scaling upwards, right? So like if for some reason you have a deck that's full of like a bunch of big creatures that have generic mana cost attached to them, they just get progressively cheaper the more you play, right? Yeah. So I think that's where this card becomes appealing. The trouble is it's a lot of setup to do any of that stuff.
I feel like this kind of like slots into like an Animar fairly well.
It feels like it's a good backup Animar for sure.
Yeah. Like I think you play it in an Animar. I think that's where I would play it, but also it's a little awkward with an Animar.
Agree. Because you have to like a Teamer for this or for
right,
yeah.
And so like that is a thing to think about. But like that is where I think about this the most. Generally speaking, I don't know where the hell I would play this. Surprise me.
Yeah, exactly. This is definitely a card where surprise me is a good answer. I hate this. It's a wild energy today.
It really is wild energy we're bringing to the show this week. Next card on our list here is Keru Gold Keeper. Gold Keeper, not Cold Keeper. That makes more sense than
I gotta preserve all these
Breaker. Gold Keeper is a 3/3 dragon that costs a generic, a black, a green, and a blue. Has flying and says whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard during your turn, create a treasure token. And it also has Renew, which costs 2 generic, a Renew ability, which costs 2 generic and a Sultai. Exile this card from your graveyard, put 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery. Well, the last line of text is fine or whatever. Yeah. The real thing is this is really good with cards that leave your graveyard.
Yeah.
Specifically Gravecrawler.
Yeah, Gravecrawler, obviously it's super insane with that. Then you just basically need a zombie. Then you're just doing like Alter the Brood or Alter Dementia stuff, right? And it gets kind of crazy. Like, so any sort of consistently like leaving the graveyard stuff, all that kind of nonsense. It's right. Insane with Breach too, which is worth mentioning. Yeah, which is the whole thing. Because I'm not sure if when you pay an escape cost or something, if that would trigger it once or twice.
It says one or more.
Well, I know, but you're paying an escape cost, which I think would count as one thing, and then going to cast a card, which would make it leave the stack. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Right.
But I actually don't know if it would see.
Right. That's exactly where I'm getting at.
Have they released set notes yet?
I don't know.
I imagine in the set notes, they will say something about an effect like Breach, because like Breach is like enough played card. Like it's legal in Pioneer, right? Like, so like, there are formats where that would be relevant. So I imagine they will like say something about like escape or harmonize or whatever, right? Like I imagine they will say something about that. So look out for the set notes, or if you're a judge and you just already know, let us know. Yeah. But this card is really good. So
I think it's really solid. Like, not to mention what happens if you pop a Yawgmoth's Will off with this thing. Like, that's pretty good. It's just got a really high upward scale for the card, and I think that's where it's impressive for sure.
Ceiling is very high on this card. Next card on our list is Mardu Siegebreaker. This is a 4/4 human warrior that costs a generic and Mardu, has Death Touch and Jesus, I didn't realize this had Death Touch and haste. And it says, whenever this creature enters, exile up to one other target creature you control until this creature leaves the battlefield. Then it also says, whenever this creature attacks, for each opponent, create a tap token that's a copy of the exiled card attacking that opponent. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice those tokens. This is really good.
I didn't realize this had haste. I thought this card sucked, and then I read it had haste, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
I like this card.
This card combos with like a stiff breeze.
Yep.
Like it is really good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of really interesting stuff you can do with it. Obviously, it's like way worse without Dockside in the format, right? Which, by the way, Modanon, shout out to you for
that was very funny.
The best shit post of all time.
That was so great. So many people didn't know it was a shit post.
And it was the best. Guys, it was the best. They basically
like
a picture of that and Dockside, and was like, "Are we okay with this?"
Something?
Yeah, is this something? And then everyone was like, "What the fuck format are you talking about?" Anywho, that being said, this is it's a super interesting card, and I think it's just going to be a matter of like what you actually use to pay off. There's some cool shit. This goes crazy with FOMO, right? No, it doesn't. But it goes crazy with the cards that when they deal combat damage, you get an extra combat. Those are the ones that are crazy. Yeah.
This is like really good with like Godo. This is also really good with like stuff like Port Razor.
Port Razor, that was the one I was thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, Port Razor is really good. Any of those sort of effects that like take other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really good. So, gotta imagine somebody like Gilded Drake's one of your creatures, right? And you get a Gilded Drake, and then you break out and you're like, hot. Thanks, buddy. So kind of you to give me a Gilded Drake.
Yeah, it's pretty good, huh? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And you copy that. Yeah. You exile it underneath this thing and you go, cool, let's go.
Fair.
I want to play Blue Farm specifically so that I can play a Siegebreaker and just Gilded Drake boards. That just sounds so fun.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's probably like, if I'm being honest, a little bit win more, right?
Probably, but
you're concerned. But like, it depends on what the payoff would be, right? Like,
yeah.
As I said, if Dockside was legal, card would be immediately played in a bunch of party decks, right? But it's not. So this is definitely a card that needs the right home for sure.
This card's hot though. The card makes me feel things.
Yeah.
Next card on our list here is Naga Flesh Crafter. This is a 3 generic and a blue snake shapeshifter. And it says you may have this creature enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. It also has Renew, which is 2 generic and a blue, and you exile this card from your graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on target non-legendary creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn.
So people are figuring out like weird lines with this card, right? I don't think it's like busted per se, but first of all, it's another 4-mana clone.
Right.
So it works with, they actually made 2 more Gyruda clones in this set alone, which is very funny. But the fact that it does the whole, hey, your board is all one thing is really interesting for decks that care about that type of effect, right? And it's very interesting for specifically random decks like that. So it's hard to say exactly what this is hoping to do, but I think more importantly, it's just a case of, okay, there are going to be really weird niche sub cases for a deck that will want this card, and everything else is just kind of like, all right, cool. It's a weird little clone,
Just a little guy. Just a weird little guy.
Just a weird little guy. Yeah, for sure.
Next card here on our list here is Steward of the Harvest. This is a 3/3 human druid that costs 3 generic and a blue, and says whenever this creature enters, exile up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard. Creatures you control have all activated abilities of all land cards exiled with this creature. Would you like every creature you control to be a Circle of Land druid?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We're here with Steward of the Harvest to make your dreams come true.
I think also worth noting that it is 3 in a green and not 3 in a blue. But
did I say blue?
You did, absolutely.
Fuck me.
To be fair,
3 in a green,
surrounded by 2 3 in a blue cards, so I understand how you made the mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, like the nut scenario that everybody is looking at is, oh my god, imagine if this was 3 Gaea's Cradles, right? Yeah, if you can set up that scenario with this card, if you can Entomb Cradle or mill it over or whatever, or you can have a Nykthos or a 3-tree city or whatever stupid land you want, like Cabal Coffers, I guess, sure, right? Like whatever dumb land you want. Having a bunch of those is sick. Even if it's like a Cavern of Souls, it's still really good in a deck that cares about that, right? So it's that easy. On the other hand, it's a 4-mana 3/3, so make sure it's worth it.
Here's the other thing too, and I want to like make sure that this is like abundantly clear that the joke of everything being like a Circle of Land druid, sure. Here's the thing. I feel like that is like a huge like a high ceiling, right? The issue is that the floor of this card is in the fucking basement, because the moment this card goes away, your Gaea's Cradle is gonzo.
Yeah.
And like, I think Gaea's Cradle personally is better on the battlefield than exiled and stapled onto creatures.
Whoa. Hot
like, I just don't think this card is very good.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's a trap.
I think so too.
Like,
I will say, in its defense, just naming a fetch land with this is actually not the worst, right? Like,
sure,
being able to sacrifice your creatures on demand and also just ramp yourself is like also kind of something, right? Like, and I think I'm more into this card if that's what you're using it for.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's high rolling as a Cradle, right? Like sometimes you need that sort of free stuff.
I think you know what? I think like using this in like an Arena Rector deck or an Academy Rector deck as like a sack outlet is like a really interesting way of using this card.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's Voracious Bibliophile. It's 3 in a blue for a 3/3 flying vigilance. Then it says whenever you cast a spell with 1 or more targets, draw that many cards. Hey, you know what? I don't know, Cal. Do spells in blue target? Turns out spells in the stack targets. I don't know if you ever read counter spells. It says counter target spell. It's pretty good. You bounce stuff, you draw a card. You counter stuff, you draw a card. You biblio, you file, draw a card. It's that easy. It's like
Donde está la biblioteca?
I mean, it all has the same root word. But yeah, it's 100% a card that is just adding cantrips to all of your things, period. And honestly, in blue, that a lot of your stuff target stuff, right? Like we're talking once again, bounce spells.
Blue control decks, I think, get a lot out of this card.
I think so too. I think this is like a really solid draw engines for deck like that, for sure.
Lotus Light Dancers. This is a 3/6 zombie bard that costs 2 generic and a soul tie.
36?
I said a 3/6, right?
Oh, I thought you said a 36. And I was like, that's a new way to read power.
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past me today. I did say that Steward of the Harvest was a 3 generic and a blue. So
yeah.
And Fangbreaker. Don't forget Fangbreaker.
Yeah, Fangbreaker.
So Lotus Light Dancers has lifelink, and it says whenever this creature enters, search your library for a black card, a green card, and a blue card, and put those cards into your graveyard. Then shuffle. It would be weird if it said not to shuffle, actually.
And leave your library completely sorted.
As it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thoughts on this card? Obviously, like there's some piles with this that you can do some stuff with. What is the streets saying out there, Senpai?
What is this energy? Where are you? Yeah, no, I mean, it's a triple entomb, right? Like there are going to be piles with this card. People are trying to figure out the best one. Something Necrotic Ooze.
And Necrotic Ooze is traditionally one of the best one comes in this format.
Classic cEDH, right? But no, I mean, like it's a triple entomb that does some broken shit, right? Like it's kind of that easy. You can do.
I actually think one of the things that this sets up really well is like a Thoracle, and then a like whatever the sack 3 creatures return turn. Like I said, I cannot remember card names for the life of me today, but I think like that, and like you entomb that, a Thoracle, and then like maybe like one of the green cards that you can like bring back or whatever. Like I think like those sorts of things, are like really good piles with us.
Sure. I think there's going to be some weird decks that play this card. I think it's like it being 5 mana is a lot, but 3 entombs is also like it's some powerful lines of text. I think it's probably not going to see a lot of play, but I think it's kind of interesting is it becomes a thing that you can entomb and reanimate itself, right? Which then gives you more reanimates and stuff like that. So I think it really depends on the deck, but there are going to be decks that want this effect for sure. So
the reason I bring this up with like Dread Return is the fact that like it like is a body itself for the Dread Return. So I think that is like big upside with it. So, anywho's next card on the list here is Colossal Grave Reaver. I don't know what's wrong with me today. Something's wrong, Ian. Something's broken. I don't know what. There's something wrong.
It's tough. It's tough, buddy.
I can't remember card names. I can't read cards. And I can clearly make all the cum jokes available. What the fuck did Jessica Jones do to me?
Your brain's just thinking about all that sex.
Just thinking about Luke Cage. I saw his ass once, and then I was just like, oh God.
That's the name of the episode is Tarkir, Dragonstorm, and Luke Cage's ass.
Colossal Grave Reaver is a 7/6 dragon that costs 6 generic, a black, and a green, and has flying. And it says whenever this creature enters or attacks, mill 3 cards. And then whenever one or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put one of them onto the battlefield. Woof. Hey,
pretty good line of text.
We were talking about, I don't know if you remember this card. This is old cEDH card, but I think we might have mentioned it earlier. Is the Gitrog monster?
Oh, sure.
Seems pretty good with this card.
Yeah. I thought you were going to make a joke about Lotus Light Dancers, the cards we literally just talked about where you can entomb.
That's also good.
Yeah.
That is also good.
Yeah. Entomb or Unmarked Grave or let's see, Shallow or what's the name of this?
Buried Alive.
Sure, Buried Alive. Yeah, it's pretty good. What's really cool about this commander or this card is that this makes Scion of the Ur-Dragon like way more viable because now you basically play Scion and don't have to let it go to combat, and you have a double activation pile where you basically put first activation, put the Grave Reaver into your yard, making Scion a copy of it. And then by the time the second dragon hits, it will transform into the second dragon, but it will also still have been a Grave Reaver by the time the card hits. And therefore it sees and allows you to reanimate it. So, 4 mana, put Broodlord, Hoarding Broodlord into the battlefield. It's like pretty good for a Scion deck. That's like sort of the floor on it. It does some pretty neat stuff in Scion of the Ur-Dragon.
Yeah. It's a good Scion of the Ur-Dragon card.
Yep.
Also think you probably play this in Gitrog. Anyway. Next card on our list here is Nature's Rhythm. Hey, do you like Finale of Devastation?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Battle of Zendikar?
Battle of Ikoria?
Is that
Invasion of Ikoria?
Yeah. Siege of Ikoria.
What? No, it's Invasion of Ikoria.
Invasion of Ikoria. And it's a battle.
Subtype Siege, yeah.
Fucking brain, dude. Do you like those cards? God, this bit is just falling apart.
Yeah.
Thanks, Caleb's brain.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is another one of those. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less. Yep. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And then it also has Harmonize X and then 4 green pips. Yep. So like it is neat that it has that flashback ability, and I think like there's some stuff that you can do with this. Mm-hmm. But the real takeaway here is, hey, we got another Finale of Devastation. Mm-hmm. Like that is the big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the ceiling and the floor of it, right? It is just this very efficient finale type card. Allows you to go through your library and do it the second time, right? Obviously, being in green, having multiple ways to tap for excessive amounts of green vis-a-vis Gaia's Cradle, stuff like that is obviously really powerful. A lot of the Kinnan pilots I talk to are really excited about this card because the harmonized text means that you're basically just paying 4 green, and 99.9% of the time with Kinnan, you're tapping some big stupid fucking thing you have on the battlefield and then using that as the X cost. So it basically becomes green, tutor anything, which is really, really powerful. So.
You know, it's interesting because we were talking about, what is it? Voice of Victory. We were talking about like how hard making like 2, like just double white pips is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I feel like, what's that 3 mana 3 pip Archdruid's Charm, yeah. Mm-hmm. When we first saw that card, we were like, man, it's hard. It's like 3 pips. But I think what we've really learned in the past year is like green is the easiest to make by like a long shot in this format. Yep. You can make so much green mana. You can sneeze and make green mana. Mm-hmm. So like, I think the prohibition of multiple pips on this is like not an issue. Yeah. Whereas like Voice of Victory, if it was like 2 white pips, it'd still be very good, but it would be a completely different conversation.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So anyway, next card on our list here is Will of the Jeskai. This is a 3 generic and a red sorcery that says choose one. If you control a commander as you cast the spell, you may choose both instead. First mode is each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards. Mm-hmm. And each instant sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So obviously, like immediately, it is a Past in Flames on one half. Mm-hmm. And also can be like a bad wheel.
Yeah, it kind of is a bad wheel. I agree. And the fact that it gives your opponents the option is strictly worse than any other versatile option there, right? Like making them do it or making them not do it. But it gives them the option, which is the biggest bummer of the card. You also can choose not to use that mode too. Mm-hmm. Very nice.
The one thing about it too, though, is like the fact that you can choose, like, because of the way that it's ordered, mm-hmm. your hand gets dumped and then you still have access to those cards for that turn. So like, I think that is the upside of it.
Yeah, it is made with direct intent to do exactly what it does. Yep.
But I mean, at 4 mana, I think that's like fine. Like I don't feel strongly about this card.
I don't feel strongly about it either. I think, what we're sort of seeing is like a lot of red storm decks don't necessarily care if it's a lot of mana. Mm-hmm. What this would be indicative of, but at the end of the day, it's like it's pretty decent, right? Like I could see the new Ral Monsoon Mage decks probably sleeving this up because that's a very real storm deck that's been popping up from time to time. So
mm-hmm. It feels like if you play this card, like a Songcrafter Mage would actually go along with this card like really well.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
So next card on our list here is we're moving on over into the instance. This is Auroral Auroral Procession. That's not a my brain bad thing. That's just a weird word.
No, Auroral is not an easy card to say. Like
Auroral Procession. It sounds like a dog making like some. It is a green and blue instant that says return target card from your graveyard to your hand. It's better regrowth.
Yeah. They just made better instant speed regrowth. Like that's okay. Sure. It's really as simple as that. It's an instant speed regrowth for only 2 mana. It's competing with Sky Turtle, right? But it's super mana efficient.
I might play Kinnan if it means I can play this instead of fucking Sky Turtle.
Listen, hater.
Card is stupid.
Sky Turtle. Sky Turtle saved me on more than one occasion, goddammit. But anyway, this is a wonderful recursion effect. It's that easy, and we can move on.
Yeah. Next card is Will of the Mardu. This is a really good fucking card. This card is an instant that costs 2 generic and a white. And it just like Will of the Mardu, you can choose one. But if you have your commander, you can cast both if you want. It says first mode is create a number of 1/1 red warrior creature tokens equal to the number of creatures target player controls. And the other mode is it deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. Woof.
I think this card's kind of borked out. Like there's so many creature decks in white that want a lot of creatures. Like we're talking about Jetmir, we're talking about Winota, we're talking about Najeela because they're fucking warriors. And also the fact that this is a removal spell stapled onto a mass token producer. This is a Balin card. This is, like there's so many fringe decks that
struggle. I struggle to think of a white deck that doesn't want to play this.
Yeah. I mean, like Blue Farm, like I
genuinely like if people are attacking into you with like a big Najeela board, it's great against Najeela. Yeah, it's great with Najeela. Yeah, like that is one of the things about this card that I think is really insane because it's so good against people coming in attacking at you. Mm-hmm. You cast this, you can block everything, maybe kill some stuff if you really are, good about it. Yeah. And you also have the ability to deal damage. It also is a removal spell on top of that. Like this is an insanely pushed card. I struggle. Like maybe Tivit doesn't play this card right because it's kind of competing for like a weird, like 3 mana instant spot in the deck. But like,
if you care about combat at all, you probably play this card.
Yeah, like I can't think of very many white decks that aren't interested in this.
Yeah, I agree. Especially with the rise in Turbo Cradle decks too. Yeah. Like this is going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, this is. I'm interested to see how this goes. So,
me too.
Will of the Mardu, A+. Next card on the list here is Mox Jasper. This is a legendary artifact that costs 0 mana, and it says you can tap it, add 1 mana of any color, activate only if you control a dragon.
People are talking about this card a lot. It's super narrow.
It's terrible. It is so bad. What deck are you playing this in?
Orvar, maybe? That's it. I just play Mox Ember instead, I think. So, yeah.
I mean, in Orvar, sure.
Yeah.
Like, I if you play this in Orvar, fine.
Yeah.
But like Rogsai, what dragons you playing, bud?
Yeah.
Like
I don't think anyone's claiming that it is a Rogsai card, to be fair.
Well, sure. But like these are the type of cards you want to play in like a turbo deck, right?
Yeah.
And so like you can't play them in the big dragon card decks because it doesn't get you to your dragon. So like just play Mox Amber because it's more likely to turn on before then. You can't play it in decks that want to go fast because you need to have a dragon for it to work.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing like a 4 or less dragon in your command zone, then you probably play it. Like if you're playing Shiko or Teval, maybe. Like
maybe. Big maybe. But this card's bad. This card's really bad.
I think so. Yeah.
Next card on our list is Dragonfire Blade. This is a 1 generic mana equipment that says equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has hexproof from mono colored. It has equip 4, but this ability costs 1 less to activate for each color of the creature it targets. I like this card a lot.
I also like this card a lot. I think it's very, very cool. There are plenty of decks in our format right now that care about pumping your commander for X amount of properties, that care about, like, for example, like the Codas deck, right? Like,
I was literally about to say, I was like, this is like a slam dunk in Codas, right?
Yeah,
like,
it costs 2 mana to give it +2/+2 and hexproof for monocolored. It's not that hard. I love this. And like Yidris is one where literally it's free to equip. You just play it for a single mana, and then you have a hexproof Yidris. Like things like that are like hell yeah, you know. It's not like the best card in the entire world, but it has benefits for sure.
It's a equipment with benefits.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that I really like about it is in decks where like the kind of protect the queen decks.
Yeah.
The thing that's really nice about it is most of the removal spells in our format are
colored. Yeah.
One color. Yeah. So I think that is like a huge, what the fuck are you doing?
Raising my desk.
You do this like once a week, and it always fucks me up every time you do this.
Yeah, so it's called having a standing desk. I don't even remember me.
Next card on our list is Herd Heirloom. It is a mana rock that costs a generic and a green, and you can tap it, add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast a creature spell. You also can tap it until end of turn. Target creature you control with power 4 or greater gains trample. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. You just play this in every green deck you play. Like, basically.
I don't know that I believe that in particular, but I think
most green decks you play.
Yeah. As I said, I'm not sure I'm like, that's the definition that I'm serving to, but I think if your commander fits the power 4 or greater dynamic,
sure,
I'm open to the idea of this card for sure. Yeah. I think it's maybe like, the fact that it is limited to only casting creature spells, I do think is relevant, right? If it wasn't, I maybe would agree with you that it's pretty free, right? But I think a lot of green decks are hybrid decks, right? They're not just casting creatures; they're casting creatures, instants, and sorceries, right? So that's kind of my concern with it, right?
Yeah,
I think you look at a deck like Animar or whatever, right? And this is like a mana dork that taps for creatures that also gives you the ability to clonk in with Animar and cantrip. It's like pretty sweet, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I when I say like every green deck, it's like most green decks that care about creatures. This is probably worth playing.
Sure.
Like it's hard for me to think about like in Kinnan, I feel like it's probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you want another mana dork, like I feel like that's good because it will make that mana and also make you 1 mana that you can actually use, which is notable with a Kinnan. So like feels fine. It's another good, like it's effectively a talisman.
Yeah.
So next card on our list here is Roiling Dragonstorm. This is a generic and a blue enchantment that says when this enchantment enters, draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And when a dragon you control enters, return this enchantment to its owner's hand.
Yeah. So this is like a card filtering spell with upside, right? Which is why I like this card. This is one I insisted we put on here because draw 2, discard is like totally fine for 2 mana, right? Like it's a very acceptable rate that's been established for quite some time, right? The fact that it then has the ability to bounce to hand, all that kind of stuff. If you're playing like a dragon commander, like we were talking about several here on today's episode, right? So like that's not bad. There's stuff with like Orvar, like we already mentioned, which is also fun because this is a permanent you can target with Orvar that then draws you cards and then does that stuff. You can also do it with Displacer Kitten, right? Like Displacer Kitten plus this card is already, +2 sculpt 1 every single time you cast an instant or sorcery or I'm a non-creature spell, pardon me. So with all of those benefits, I think like this is really interesting for decks like that, especially decks that are like, high card velocity decks, right? Things that, like, would want to pick up your permanents and things like that and be able to like continue to play spells over and over again, right? So I think it's really cool in those spaces.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. Next card on the list is Aligned Heart. This card is an enchantment that costs 2 generic and a white.
Yeah.
And it says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a rally counter on this enchantment. Then create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess for each rally counter on it.
I actually really like this card.
This card is stupid.
Yeah. I actually really, really like this card. I think the fact that, I mean, first of all, it scales ridiculously, right? Like first,
insanely fast.
And then make 2 tokens, then make 3 tokens, right? Like that gets out of hand relatively quickly. I think in high velocity spellslinger decks, like it does a really solid job of doing that, but it also does so in decks that care about bodies, like we've been talking about, right? Like Yoda and Jemir and, certain other decks like Balin maybe, but like a lot of these decks have not gotten as much love and respect as we're getting in this set. And I think it's really, really interesting. There's a lot of stuff where like, making a scaling amount of bodies every turn for some of these fringe decks is actually pretty big, Yeah. What I really appreciate about this set is like, I feel like we are getting, despite a couple, moral stinkers, we're getting a couple cards that are just actually pushing some really interesting, unique strategies more so.
Right. Yeah. Fully agree. This card is quite good. I don't really know every home that I think Winota is an obvious one.
Yeah.
But I think there will be some interesting places that this can potentially land. Next card on our list here is Frostcliff Siege. This is an enchantment that costs a generic and a blue-red, and says, as this enchantment enters, choose Jeskai or Teamer. The Jeskai side says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. And the Teamer is creatures you control get +1/+0 and have trample and haste.
So this has a number of different functions. It could be relevant in a number of different decks. The fact that you're able to go, okay, it's potentially an enchantment version of Tymna. Super sweet. Very cool to have access to, especially in like low color Malcolm decks. Those are decks that really like this type of effect and require it quite often. And then the 1/0 trample and haste thing is like usually specific for very distinct combo decks that are trying to do that thing. Think decks like to say kind of, right? They've been playing like Rhythm of the Wild and shit like that.
Right.
Right. So this is, and it may literally just be like, oh, this is a Rhythm of the Wild that you can afford to pitch to force, right? Like that might just be worth people. So, it's cute for those aspects for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Next card on the list is Glacierwood Siege. This is a generic and a green and blue. And you choose either Teamer or Sultai. The Teamer ability, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, target player mills 4 cards. Yes. And then the Sultai side is you may play lands from your graveyard. So this is pretty good.
Yeah. The fact that it's a breach enabler, basically. You like have this plus Lotus Petal, you're netting a card every time you cast it, right? Which is already crazy. You're milling yourself for 4.
Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell.
I am illiterate. So if you cast a Rite of Flame over and over again, you're able to, but you're basically able to create a rather ridiculously easy breach package with this. And also the fact that like this becomes an outlet after you've like achieved infinite mana, which is kind of fun, right? You can just like cast an instant over and over again and mill your opponents out. Not to mention all the synergies with Breach, or the fact that there's more lands decks that are being talked about and played in the format nowadays. And this is a really good way to make those have play. And that's completely unrelated to the other stuff. What's nice too is that, like, say you already have redundancy. Say you've already got like Ramin Up Excavator on the battlefield. Great. Then you put it on for the instant and sorcery side. And then every time you counter a spell, you're milling yourself so you can make your land drops, etc.
Right.
So
something we talked about at the beginning of the episode was like the flexibility of cards was a huge thing. And the sieges are really good examples of flexible cards.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Next card on our list is the Sibsig Ceremony. This card costs 3 black. It's a legendary enchantment. It says creature spells you cast cost 2 generic less to cast. Whenever a creature you control enters, if you cast it, destroy that creature, then create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So you specifically asked for this card. So what's going on here?
Yeah. Buddy? So I think this card has the ability to make some interesting fringe decks, right?
Okay.
The fact that this is like auto sack Rector, auto sack Protean Hulk on a card is pretty interesting, right? So for 3 black mana, you invest into this thing, then it only costs 2 for a Rector effect, 5 for a Protean Hulk, right? Like there's a lot of effects that
does change the math quite a bit on
change the math by quite a lot, especially 2 mana Rectors are like really, really cool. And then, the creatures that you bring in off Hulk or whatever thing you're pulling in, they don't actually end up being destroyed because they are not being
cast, right?
So like that it's like it has some really cool relationships with some cards like that. It's not like, you know, super crazy game warping or whatever, but I think for some fringe decks, this is a really, really interesting design space.
Yeah, for sure. Next card on the list here is Windcrag Siege. This card costs a generic, a red and a white. You can choose Mardu or Jeskai. The Mardu ability, if a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. The Jeskai is at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. It gains lifelink and haste until end of turn. This is a Winota card if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Like,
and the flexibility once again to go, oh, hey, do I need more bodies? Great. It's going to make bodies every single turn. Oh,
right.
Do I want to just put my opponent in a tomb? Great. Doubling the Winota abilities.
Right.
GG.
It's so funny because like in the original Tarkir set, the sieges were like awful. Like,
yeah.
Almost unplayable. And the sieges in this set are excellent.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Like all of them are good.
Yeah.
And so it's very cool to see how they kind of like pushed them a little bit more and see how that like design has evolved over the last decade.
Yeah, completely agree.
Next card here is Draco Genesis. This is Rooftop Storm, but for dragons.
Mm-hmm.
That's the pitch. It costs 6 generic and 2 red. And Ian's working on a Tiamat deck with this to the shock and awe of nobody. You know, it's an obvious Rector deck.
Yeah.
You get this, you cast Tiamat.
Win with dragons. Yeah. And you
Profit?
know, I've heard people be like, why not grab like an Omniscience? And it's because specifically it says you may cast dragon spells without paying their mana cost. It does not say from where, right?
Yep.
So you can cast them from the command zone, from your hand, from the graveyard, from your library, right? It does not matter. You can cast them for free. Which is great. That's exactly what you need for a card like this. You cheat into the battlefield, play your commander, win the game. Super easy. Nice.
This card's really good in Tiamat. That deck honestly also got a big upgrade in this set.
Yeah.
Last card, our last and definitely least.
Super bad card. No one's even going to touch.
I'm so mad that this card got printed. Honestly,
yeah.
Mistrise Village. It's a land and it enters tapped unless you control a mountain or a forest. So like if you're not like there is some downside to this card for what it's worth. You can tap it to add blue or for a blue and tapping it. The next spell you cast this turn can't be countered. So for what it's worth, it is on rate for the effect that it is giving.
Sure.
But it's on a land, which is ridiculous.
Right? Which there is many ways for this to not really have a huge impact, right? And with green being one of the featured colors for this, and, the color of crop rotation, Sylvan, Scrying, sowing Mycospawn, etc. Obviously, this is a very powerful land. There are certain decks where this will feel very fair. There are decks like Kinnan where I really just don't think they needed an effect like this.
Right.
Frank. That's kind of the TLDR here, right? I think there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. With this card, it provides a ridiculous amount of value for incidentally very low cost, right? I also was working with
there's no opportunity cost to it. Like that's the issue.
Depends on the deck, right? And this is what I was going to get to next, which was like I was talking with the Blue Farm pilot earlier, and I was like, don't play this card, right? Because the red is like their splash color, and so I'm like, can you really afford a tapped monocolored land in most games? And the answer is probably not, right? But and of course this is not for every variant of Blue Farm, but for the one that they were currently working on, right? And so I think that is the case with a number of different like higher color decks. It might not be as air quotes free, but which I mean is an upside, right? I will say like giving a benefit to lower color decks more specifically is a good thing, right? But I don't think blue needed you can't counter this function,
right? Yeah.
I don't think Simic needed this as a tool option, right? Like, yes, people are happy about Simic options, but like, I think this is what I've heard that I did like was it feels like a way for other blue combos to be able to basically like sing and dance to the same song that these Grand Abolisher decks have been singing to for a while, right? Which I do think is a valid thing, right? And to be fair, it's the equivalent of tapping 2 blue to activate this card, right? The fact that you're removing its own ability to tap for a blue mana, and then it costs a blue to activate as well, right?
Like it is effectively 2 mana to give something to make a spell uncounterable is effectively what it says, because it is. You're taking away one of your own mana with this, and you have to put a mana into it. So it's effectively 2 mana to make something uncounterable.
Yeah.
Which is on rate.
Yes.
But
it's so, and this is where like my criticism of the thought pattern comes out, is like, it's like a spell that says 2 blue, the next spell you control can't be countered this turn, right? Mm-hmm. But it's an instant that also cannot be countered. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and that's the thing that is like more concerning, is like, this is an activated ability on a land. And there's going to be games that are like, people are playing around really efficiently, and then they're just going to feel like agency has been stripped from them because someone played a land drop for turn.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. I'm not a fan of this card getting printed, but it's I don't think it's like sky is falling bad.
Yeah.
But it is concerning.
I hope that. So this is my sort of small tirade about this set, is that like, some of the cards that were pushed make really fun build arounds and things like that. Mm-hmm. Cards like this and Voice of Victory are just generically powerful in what feels like a bit of a lazy way, right? Mm-hmm. Which is just disappointing. Like, I kind of would hope that they would have put a little bit more effort into like, giving us a big payoff for somewhat of a big setup cost, right? As opposed to just like, oh, play this land.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But I also am willing to be open to the criticism of like, well, actually the fact that you need these 2 land subtypes is actually potentially a downside for it. Cause I agree. Like,
like you can't play this in like Tivit, right? Yeah. Like, this is terrible in a deck like that.
Exactly. And that is one thing I will say, is that like, I've gone on record saying, Esper is probably one of the best combinations right now, 3 color combinations, and this specifically is antithetical to that, right? It is like not paying off for the Esper heavy deck. So maybe it is actually a good balance tool, and I would love to believe optimistically that it could be,
I don't believe every color needs to have access to everything. I think that if you're like the silence effect thing, right? Like, I think like it should be a downside. You need to be making like the obvious like decision to not, like, you're giving up something. Like, that's part of what I like about Commander, is because the color restrictions, you're saying, I value this strategy enough that I'm giving up these things. Right. Sure. And like, I think that when you give everybody every tool, you take away the need for that.
Sure. I don't think that's what this does necessarily, though. But I hear you.
Well, yes, but I'm more or less arguing that, like, I don't know that Kinnan needs, or that blue-green decks need this.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that is kind of.
Kinnan is the one deck where I'm like, I don't think Kinnan needed this. I think other blue-green and blue-red low-color decks, I actually wouldn't be too offended by this existing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't hate this card. It's just, it's the same issue with Dockside to some extent, where like Dockside brought a lot of fringe stuff into the format, but it also took the stuff that was at the center of the format and threw it so far ahead that like bringing the fringe up like a mile didn't matter.
Sure.
Because the rest of it was so far. And I'm not saying this is like that bad, but it is like moving in that direction. And that is my concern with it.
No, I think that's a very valid concern for sure. Anyways, on that optimistic note, that's our set review.
On that great disappointment. Overall, I like this set a lot. I think this is a really cool set. Like, I like a lot of the commanders in this set. I like a lot of the like 99 includes in this set. Like, I just think this is a sweet set, and I also think it's just a cool world to explore.
Yeah, Tarkir.
Like, Tarkir rules.
Yeah.
I'm mildly biased because it was like one of my first sets.
Same, also. Yeah.
So like, a little biased, but
yeah.
With that being said, Ian, if people want to get some help brewing some of these new commanders from you, where can they get a hold of you to get that assistance?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in doing any of the stuff, the new Tarkir Dragonstorm Commander, hit me up at comedianmtg@gmail.com or in any of the links in the link tree down below. This is a bit of a crazy month for me. I've already published on my socials like all the days that I'm traveling this month. So make sure if you're interested in doing some of that, experimenting with any of these things, or if you're prepping for the Heisenberg or whatever it might be, hit me up sooner rather than later, because I'd love to get a session in folks who want to get them in. That being said, also, I'm doing a sale for $15 off anyone who wants to work on new stuff from Dragonstorm. So if you're interested in working on a commander or a strategy based off of the cards printed in this set, hit me up and you can get a discount on the session associated with it. So
awesome.
Cool stuff there.
If you like what we do here on the Mind Sculptors, you can go over to Patreon/the Mind Sculptors and help support us there. Everything helps us out immensely. Also, if you would be so kind and leave an offering for Algorithm Jesus, a like, a comment, and a subscribe on YouTube goes very far. And a lot of that stuff also on like Spotify works, like also helps their algorithm, all the places. I believe like reviews on Apple Podcasts are their like thing. So any of those stuff, we greatly appreciate it. We haven't gotten a new review on Apple Podcasts in a while. So if somebody wanted to leave a review over there, that'd be kind of cool. But that being said, I'm Cal.
I'm Ian.
Stay sculpty, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.